Hello and welcome to the first SQFLite tutorial. In this tutorial we will be building this simple application in which we will be able to create contexts like this, and we'll also be able to edit them and of course deleting them. So we'll be using the SQFLite plugin, which is the plugin for SQLite library, and so it's very small, fast and reliable library, and it's also free. Its code is public domain, so that's why it's pretty widely used because everybody likes free stuff. But the main thing is that it reads and writes data directly to a disk or from a disk, and that's quite different from other SQL database because other different SQL databases are often connected to an external remote server and from which we are able to read and write files to. But yeah, the SQFLite only just runs locally, so that's basically it. If you want to know more about it, there will be a link to the official documentation. And yeah, let's start building. Hello guys and welcome to this SQFLite course. As you can see, I've prepared some UI so we don't waste much time with our user interface, and it's pretty basic stuff, just one floating action button which takes us to this add contact page, and we have one floating action button to add new context. You can check these files out. I got prepared beforehand. We got some widgets, the context list. This is where we will be, it's located here, and here we will be displaying our context, and also the horizontal button bar is just this button bar, which currently holds just one button, this floating action button. And yeah, that's it basically. You can download this starting point, the project, in the GitHub link down in the description of this video. And let's now create our data layer. So new package called data, and in here we will create a new file, database.dart. And of course we forgot something. It's to obviously add our external libraries. Just clean this up quick because I found it really annoying. And here we are going to need some dependencies like this. We are going to need SQFLite. Of course, we are doing SQFLite course, so it's self-explanatory, and the path provider, because we will be doing something with our path to our database, which is going to be located on our device. So we need this path provider for some methods, and yeah, you'll see later. So let's just go to this data layer, and so yeah, I've got this basic template prepared, so we don't waste any time. We're just importing packages. We're going to need dart.io package, SQFLite, path provider, and path. So this class in particular, the database repository, come on, is going to be a singleton. So as you can see, some shady stuff happening here. This database repository has its own private constructor. I'm just going to change this visibility. So that means that only this class can initiate or make the instance of itself. And whenever we are referencing to this class, we are always referencing to this same one instance and nothing else. We cannot override this object, the object which obviously the database repository object, and because we are always referencing to this one instance, and it's a common thing that a lot of people use when are working with databases, because it can, if you create a lot of different objects of these databases, this can lead to troubles, like very big time troubles. And yeah, we are going to need some variables, I mean, not the yes, variables, some database related variables, so like database name, which we are going to define. We'll just give it database. I know, very creative. And also the version, so final database version, just leave that as 1. And then we are going to need some methods. The first one is going to be the method that will check if our database has already been created. Otherwise, we will create a new instance. So when we are first going to run this application, this method will fire up and it will check, come on, and it will check if we have already initialized our database, which we also forgot to create as a variable. Database, let's call it database, yeah. And just one simple if statement. So if that database is not null, so if it's already been created, we are going to just return it, return database. Otherwise, we are just going to create it. So we are going to create a new method for that. So init database, short for initialize. Let's create this method now. It will be async. And here we will need quite a lot of dependencies like directory for our documents directory variable. This is just we need the directory of our applications, so get application directory, so we can then create a new database in this location on the phone, on the actual device. So let's create a path, the whole path to our location on phone. Okay, just what are we missing? Yeah, it's an async method. We are now going to use our path, so documents.path, and we are going to use our database name. So here, this is the path to our database, and here we are going to create our database. So open database, we are passing our path and our version that we initialize here, and also we will need onCreate method. So what is going to be done, which is also going to be async, so on create, and yeah, we need to actually create this method. It's not going to do it by itself. Let's create this. This is going to be the future type. On create, takes in our database, let's just call it db, and also version, so integer version. And now here we are going to create our first table, so db.execute. So here in this execute method we can execute SQL query, like we can write raw SQL. We don't need to, actually we can't use any helper methods from SQFLite as I'm aware of, but I already have this prepared, so we don't waste time with writing basic SQL. And yeah, here we have it. Oh yeah, we are missing async because this is going to be a synchronous method. Just format it a little, and as you can see, we are here creating our tables. So the table is going to be named contact, and it's going to have 3 columns: the integer ID, which is also going to be primary key, and it's going to increment it itself. So when we first create our first contact, it's going to have the ID of 1, next one is going to have the ID of 2 and 3, and so on, and also the name and surname. So I already have this contact model prepared. Okay, well, we are having some error here, what's wrong? Oh yeah, classic one. And this is our contact model. It's pretty simple. I didn't want to write it because it's just very basic. It has an ID, integer, string name, and string surname, and also the constructor, and from map and to map methods. So why we need these 2 methods? Because in the SQFLite we cannot save our contact as a actual contact object. We need to transform it into a map because the SQFLite takes in a map as a variable. So whenever we are saving contact, we need to parse it into map, so then we can actually save it. And when we are returning, so when we are reading from database, the database of course returns map, and we can use from map method to transfer it back to an object. So to map method to actually save object, save contact into database, and from map method to actually retrieve it and cast it back to contact model. And yes, so we have our basic database model. So let's now create the database operations, which are going to be just methods that we will be able to use to actually interact with our database. So as you can see, I already have these basic methods written out, so we don't waste time with writing this. And as you can see, we are importing our model. So our contact, we are importing it into this class, and we have 4 main methods: one to create a contact, one to update contact, one to delete contact, and one to retrieve all the contacts from our database. So, and now the first thing that we need is we need to get our database instance that we've created before, and let's do it. So database what's it called, program database repository. So let's call it db repository is going to be database repository and the instance of it. So now we have it here in our class and we can use it. So here in our create contact, we need, of course, our database repository, the database. So this thing right here, the actual database that we are then checking if it's already been initialized and creating tables. So we need it now, and let's just call it here final db. So database is going to be await our db repository and our database. So this database is now accessing the actual database, and now we can call the different methods like db.insert, and here we can now insert our contact into the actual table. So as I said before, we are importing our contact in our function. So we need to just specify the table, which is called context. Let's just double check it. Contacts. See, this is our table on our contact. And the value is going to be our contact, and we are going to parse it to a map in the method that we defined previously in our model. So this insert method is just an easy way to insert the data, and yeah, it's just pretty neat and helpful, so we don't have to write raw SQL queries. And so let's now move on to our update contact. Like this, we are also need the same database, and we're just going to change this from insert to update. Also contact, and but we are not we have to now specify which contact we want to update, because this update method does not do it by itself. So let's do this first. So where our contact ID, so this is the column, this contact ID is just this column. So we are referencing, we are checking IDs. So if this contact we are not where the context ID in our table is equal to arguments, and the argument is our contact ID, there we are going to update our contact. So we are missing column, and yeah, that's it. We are updating our contact table. We are parsing contact to a map where the contact ID is equal to our contact ID that we are passing into our function. So let's now move on. Also copy this line. Yeah, and we are also going to copy this line. Just change this to delete. And here we don't actually need this contact. And yeah, that's it. We are now using this database to delete the contact where ID equals to the contact ID that we are passing into our function. Now the last function or method is going to be get all contacts, and this stays the same. And here, as you can see, we are returning the list of the contacts. So as I said before, the SQFLite does not return the contact data type that we defined in our models class, so we need to cast it right here. And first, let's do just call this all rows, which is going to be just db.query. Just a second, I'll explain it. This query is just is almost like select. So we are now selecting things from our contact table, and this all rows is just a map. It's just a map that actually consists of the string, which is the column name, and the dynamic type, which is the column value. So let's now parse it. So all list of contact objects, what's wrong, contact, call it contacts, equals to all rows, and we are going to map through them. So map, and let's just change this E to a contact, so it's nicer. And for every contact object in this map, we are going to use from map method that we defined before, pass in the contact and transform it, or actually add it to a list. So we are now returning the list of contacts which exist in our contact table. And yeah, that's all for this operation. We can now just move to user interface. Let's go to our context page. Here we will create a class, the object of this database operations. So context. Now let's just first move to add page. So this page right here, we will now, yeah, we need this context operations is going to be contact operations, and here we can now take the value of these two text fields. So let's create our contact right here. Final contact is a contact, and the name of this contact name water me. Oh yeah, we need to import it, of course. Come on, Dart does not want to play along, so just going to import it in here like this. So name is going to be our name controller text, and our surname is going to be our surname controller dot text. So that's it, we have our contact. Now we need to call this insert or create contact method. So let's on press, we create a new contact. Now let's call our operations, contact operations object, and insert it. So create contacts, and no, never mind, create contact, and yeah, pass in this contact. Let's just check if, let's just print something. If there is not going to be an error, so let's name it John Doe, whatever. Return, oh wait,
A few moments later.
So I had to rebuild the project, run the Flutter clean command, and it works now. As you can see, I inserted two John Does in our database, and yeah, let's now try to read those two Johns from our database. Let's go to our context page, and we will import the context list here. Where is it? Like, yeah, and we are in this context list, we need the list of contacts. So before we try to just call it like that, which was pretty stupid, but we need to actually get all the contacts from database, and then we can display them. So for that we will need or for that we will need the future builder, so which is going to take in the future, and we need the instance of our, where is it, our contact operations, and let's call get all contacts, and we have our builder method now, takes in context, context, and snapshot. So our data is stored in our snapshot, and let's now do this, and first we will check if this snapshot has error. We are going to just print error. Let's see, just error, and the data, so variable data is going to be our snapshot dot data, and now we can finally return our context list and pass in the data that we retrieved from the future get context. So we are with this context list is our list right here. It's nothing special, just list view builder. Yeah, be sure to check this to true, because list view builder likes to take as much space that it wants. So with this we are then limiting it, so it takes as little space as it's necessary. And the dismissible, okay, I'll show you what dismissible widget is later. We need the key text. We are displaying context ID, name, and surname. So it also the where is it? The item builder method takes in also the index, so we can then easily locate the contact in the context list by its index. So let's see if this works. I did not save this. Yeah, it works. See, we have John Doe and John Tutu, and so I forgot to clarify what this dismissible widget is. So actually, watch this. We can dismiss items. So currently nothing happens as we rebuild the page. These two Johns reappear, but we will now implement our delete method from database operations, and we will actually delete these two contacts. So where's our context list? So this dismissible widget has a method on dismissed, and this is what happens when we drag the widget out of our list view. And so database operations, we also need this again, and call, contact operations, no database operation. So let's call this and call delete method, delete contact, and pass in the contact at the index. So yeah, context. So we are now passing in our delete content method the contact that is at a certain index in our list of contacts. So let's see if this actually works. Yeah, it works. We have no contacts currently. Just add another one, John. Let's name it Sina for change. So And come on, here it is, our John Cena with the ID of 3, and yeah, it works. Let's now implement this edit contact. So we already have edit contact page, which it takes in the contact as an attribute, and also it needs it for construction of this contact page stateful widget. We have two controllers, name and surname, just like in our add contact page. And now we will let's see, I forgot we are this we need to set the value of these controllers. So just a second. Name controller. What's wrong? Just did we try to reference him name? Okay, let's just reference them in the build method. Name controller. Come on. Dot text equals to widget dot contact dot name, and also surname dot text equals to widget contact dot name. So we are changing here, we are retrieving the contact that we pass into our edit page. We are then setting the values of these two controllers, which set these two text fields. So we will be displaying name and surname right here. Let's call, where is our edit context list? Okay, so this should be working. I already did this, and it's nothing special, just navigator, which pushes the context, and new route, which is at the contact page, which also takes in the context at the index, just like delete method. It takes in just one contact. And let's see, why is this not working? We got some errors here. Okay, that's not, I'm obviously missing something really. Context list. Yeah, it works now. I don't know what happened before. We just forgot to change this. So our edit page now takes in the values of our contact. We can change this and press this and nothing will happen. See, but if we call our database operations, what's contact operations, I should just copy this and call our update method just like this. And pass in our contact, so widget.contact. We are now referencing to the same contact that we used when we displayed the edit contact page, but we are just changing the name and surname. And just a second, we need to set, just we forgot to set the actual values. So widget.contact name is name controller dot text. This is where we actually set the new values to our new contact. Come on. Okay, so let's see if this will work. John Cena. Let's create John Cena. John Jackson Cena. Stupid name, but yeah, it works. Let's change it back to John. Sounds much better. John Cena. And voila, we have our basic CRUD application. As you can see, we can add it. We can add new contacts. Joe Johnson. I don't know what I have with this. Okay, so Joe was inserted, and you can edit it. So Joe, I don't know, something. Joey. Yeah, this is probably the weirdest name and surname combination, but it works, and we can now delete him. And if we navigate back to our page, and when it builds, we have just our precious John Cena. And yeah, this is basically it for this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, or if it helped you out a little, you can give it a thumbs up. And yeah, there is going to be one tutorial incoming, that's for sure. We are going to talk about foreign keys, and we are going to implement the search bar, so we will be able to search through our context. So, and yeah, probably some other interesting things. So until then, see you next time.